Hello, everyone. Welcome to Just Chat. I'm your host, Uncle Dominic. Today, we'll be talking about something very interesting, which I find a lot because the idea of feeling unseen and feeling worthless. It's a feeling that pretty much almost everyone gets it, and sometimes even a lot. And it makes you feel like you can't do anything, like no one sees you, or the things that you have done doesn't seem to have be approved by someone, and you feel like, no, what is going on? Well, today we're going to talk about it, and we're going to invite our special guest, and her name is Sharon Rolph. Let's give her a hand. Welcome, Sharon, to the show. All
Thank you for
right.
having me, Dominic. Yeah,
How have you been?
I have been. I was out by Mount Rainier this weekend, so camping was my breathing deeply. So I'm doing
Camping.
good. Yeah.
I used to take my family go camping for a while. We love camping. It's pretty fun. All right. Well, can you tell us to our audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'd love to. I am a behavioral scientist. I am a retirement coach, and I'm a certified knowledge manager. And I love talking about potential and curiosity and courage. On Instagram, I'm the Queen of Courage, Sharon underscore Queen of Courage. And that was another long story to tell you about how that happened. But I'm 76. I've never married, never had children. Still would like to, but I have been, um, since I retired, found the first thing we did in coaching class was write our essence statement. And was that a transformation, because I realized that when I shared my essence, I was actually defining my soul. Wow. But it still took me about 3, 4 months before I realized that when I'm living from what's inside, my essence, my spark, I call it, my DNA, my soul, life is good. And I want everybody to know what's inside of them, because that's what gives joy. But when I first retired, I think it was about 3, 4 months into my retirement, I I started bouncing off the wall and saying, how do I know if I'm productive? And I realized that there was no boss to please anymore. You know, who, who tells me whether I'm doing having a good day or productive, doing what I should be? And I had made a wall hanging of my essence statement, and I had it on the wall behind me here. And one day I came over 3 different times and read my essence statement, and I gradually realized when I lived from what mattered to me, what's on the inside in my heart, then every day felt right. And so values is a big part of living a good life, because it aligns with what's inside.
Well, it seems like you did live a good life, and you're still living it, and you're still pretty happy about it. If you don't mind, could you share with us a few lines from your essence thing that you wrote?
Oh,
It's
I'd
hard to
love
see.
to.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Okay. Sure.
asking. Thank you for asking. I am precious jewel of wisdom. I am colorful collaborator, motivator, and learner. I am tranquil, authentic, and pure inspirer. I light fires.
Wow. Wow. It feels like kind of thing like when people wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and you encourage yourself, but you wrote it as your essence, and it reminds you as you look at it. It's like, wow, that is really good. That is really good. Well,
Yeah,
let's
and
get
go ahead.
sorry. Well, let's get to the topic because feeling unseen when feeling invisible, right? Uh, and people feel worthless about it. So I want to get into it and talk a little bit more about this by saying that let's start by saying a lot of things that we do sometimes, like you mentioned earlier, that you're retired and you don't need any. There's no bosses to please anymore. But in our entire life as human beings, we always tend to want to belong to a certain society or a certain group. And when we go to this group or society, we adhere to whatever they are trying to do. And many say we pleases them. But sometimes, well, actually, most times when we things that we do feel like it is being unseen, and when we do something hard, work hard for it, and people don't see it, or we feel underappreciated, we feel down, we feel worthless, we feel like there's nothing we do that people care about, and it it destroys self-esteem, it destroys relationships, it destroys families. If as students, it destroys your willing to live, right? So let's talk a little bit about this. And you have seen life, you have been around. Um, Tell me more of things that you have seen about this, and how did it ever happen to people, and how can we overcome this?
Well, it's a big topic for sure. And since my niche is mostly baby boomers, um, it especially as our loved ones, our friends, like neighbors and people you've known over the years, they eventually pass away, and that's one way of feeling invisible. That your who you used to know are gone, evaporated. But I want to start back at I was 8, 10, 12 years old when I wanted to be invisible because it was safe.
Hmm.
So a lot of childhood trauma, um, we process it in our head in how to, because our main motivation, I think, at that age is being safe. And there was sexual abuse going on in our home, and I thought, well, if I double down, really focus, get good grades, be obedient, um, don't rock the boat, maybe I'll be safe. And so, I was a lifelong learner, and that saved my skin, I think, because I went on to college, and I did most of my college night school and weekends because I paid for it myself.
Hmm.
And I I had this deep, way down in the gut feeling um, of not really being seen, and it wasn't actually until just a year or two ago that I realized that it was kind of a vow. I must have said 100 times, 1,000 times, thank heavens he keeps his hands off me, because that meant I likely would be safe. And my mom was a loving mom, but she kind of um, didn't deal with the abuse, and so the the results of the abuse, they say either you become promiscuous or you become overweight. Well, I was overweight a lot of my life. I'm getting that under control now, but um, the uh, I was a good worker. I worked at the post office for 19 years in the data processing area, and even at Boeing. I was a good worker. I was diligent. Well, I'm also an introvert, so not rocking the boat is kind of goes along with so somewhat of being an introvert. But um, the I didn't realize how invisible. I had read Vivek Murthy's. This is our Surgeon General in the U.S. He wrote a book called Together, and it's really about loneliness. This is the second book because it's kind of a softback, but I read originally the hardback, Together, and he said there's lots of variety of feeling lonely, and feeling invisible is one of them. I had no idea that my feeling invisible, unseen, unheard was part of loneliness. I had kind of prided myself on not needing, dealing with loneliness back in my 20s and 30s, because um, I liked my own company. I liked doing what I wanted to do. In fact, one Friday night, this critical voice came at me and said, "Sharon, you should be out there socializing. That's what people your age do." And I'm not a bar and person. I wouldn't know what to do there. And wait a minute, I'm crocheting an Afghan, and I have it on my bed still. And I was doing what I wanted to do, crocheting, and I said, well, why am I doing this? Well, I chose to do it. I'm in control of my decisions in my life. And so go bother somebody else. Shoo, shoo. And I felt like I had solved that loneliness problem way back, and I was probably 22, 23 years old. So when Vivek Murthy comes along with saying that feeling invisible is a type of loneliness, that was a wake up call. I was surprised. And so I've started um, reneging on my vow to be invisible. About the same time I retired, I'd taken this profile, and I like profiles because they tell me how I'm different from you and helping me understand people aren't the same as me. So the spectrum is broad. But I this profile came back and said I was an influencer.
Hmm.
Really? I think you might have the wrong profile here. What is this? And being a curious person that I am, I thought, well, maybe I should take some baby steps towards seeing if that's true. And that's in fact when I started doing my podcasts. I did 53 of them, and
That's nice.
yeah, so I woke up to the fact that I did have something to say, and because I embraced wisdom over the years, um, I um, I thought, well, yeah, maybe I am worth listening to. So I started inviting guests on, and a little inch by inch, we've been gotten to this place. So you got another question for me? Let's see. Oh, and
What
and I started making these little art blocks. And that's one of the things I realized, who I am. I love sewing.
fresh courage. Yeah.
I love words of wisdom, and I love color. And so I have been a little bit influential with my blocks because I've made like probably 400 or 500 of these.
Wow. And you're
And
selling this as well?
pardon?
Are you selling this as well?
Yes, they are on Etsy. My store is called Quilted Petunia. So
Okay.
I've got about 130 or 40 of them out there now, and it's kind of somewhat my brand, but it's uh, there you go along the street and businesses will have signs out to thought for the day.
Hmm.
Well, that's where I picked up a lot of these, and whenever I'm reading a book, I'm often making notes of, oh, that's a short little nugget that I could put on my art block.
Well, thank you, Sharon, for such sharing quite a in-depth thoughts over there. And there's actually a lot of things that I want to pick on and talk about it. But at the same
Okay.
time, I feel like there is a point that you mentioned. Well, first, I'm gonna say sorry for the things that you have felt or have happened to you, particularly with the um, those things, bad things that we probably shouldn't have happened to younger children or anything like that, but it did happen. Um, it is tough, and I guess in that sense, when you want to say to feel unseen, which is actually pretty good in that sense because you want to be invisible, you don't want to stand out. This actually pretty common sense right now to a lot of young people here in the younger generations, especially when they're right now in school. Most kids do not want to stand out a lot because they feel like if they stand out, they get to the point of bullying. They get bullied. If they feel strange, they get bullied about it, and it creates well, actually, it makes their self-esteem terrible, and at the same time, they feel like, what's the point of living? Um, of course this is difficult when kids feel that way. um, how do we know as an adult, how do we know and how can we help them? As teachers it's difficult because if the students do not come and approach you and tell you that they're having problems, it's hard for teachers to catch a hold of it unless the teacher actually pays attention to what's going on in their class and sees certain problem. But then for teachers nowadays, we cannot just go up to a student and say, hey, are you okay? Something's wrong with you? And most of the time students will back away. No, too strong, move away. So I want to be invisible. And then worst case scenario, they take their own life. And this does happen quite often. We have seen records of students losing their life because they can't cope with school life. They can't cope with things that are happen in their family. Um, so when you mentioned that feeling invisible, feeling unseen, it's a way for you to escape, and you get used to it. I think that's kind of good in a way, but it doesn't happen for everyone. I feel like in these days and age, if people start to feel invisible, it makes things worse compared to before. Mainly because we have uh, easy resource like the internet to get into, and it makes things worse. It doubles down on things, and it just makes it worse for for people. I'll give an example. Let's say I feel terrible today. I try to do something really good and it makes me feel terrible. And so in your day and age, if I were to return to my home or just avoid certain people, I can avoid a lot of people because I will not have access to the internet. I will not access to people around. So it's just a small circle, so saying. But right now, if young children, like young people, if they feel like they're not having a great time, a great day, they feel worthless. When they go home, of course, they'll avoid their family, avoid their friends, and the thing that they lean back into will be their mobile phones or their cell phones, and they'll be accessing their Instagram, their social media sites. And if on the social media sites there are things like, yeah, you're worthless, or stay worthless, or things like that that happens on the internet, the people, what the word they use now is called trolling, right? So they troll you. They don't actually say that you should do these bad things, but they just want to say it. Um, and he adds on to the negativity, and it makes it worse. It doubles down, right? And then eventually, for some people, it will break, right? When they break, then things happen. I feel like this is bad. I mentioned this as for students, but this does happen to everyone's age, right? um, there's one thing that you mentioned also, that feeling unseen, people that you know already has already left this world. um, I'm at my 40s, right? I'm not very as old as you. I've never been into life as long as you yet, but I have seen some of my friends have already left the world, and it makes me feel kind of like, why is this happening? It's like almost every month someone I know is leaving or has left, and it makes me feel like, does it mean that am I going to be next, or things like that? It makes me wonder, and it doesn't feel so good, right? It doesn't feel so good. But like you mentioned, it's part of the world, it's part of life, and so it's hard. So and you found an escape in doing crochet and things like that. And I encourage everyone out there, if there's problem in your life, if there's something not working out, and you found something to do, like she did, crochet, I think that's wonderful. Painting for me, drawing for me, listening to music is a way to escape. There's a lot of ways we can escape from feeling unseen, feeling worthless. But I think the main important things is, you mentioned that you later on you read the book together by Kevin, and you found that this is a problem. This is a problem, loneliness, but you escaped that. But in the same way, we want to belong. All humans want to belong, but there are ways we are giving excuse to ourselves that we don't need to, but we don't need to, and then in the end, we just either die lonely. I'm not saying that we all should get married, we all should have a companion, we should have no, it's more like your feelings need to be there. You need to be around the world. If you there's so many ways we can do that. It doesn't mean mingling out with people. Sharing your knowledge is example for one. That's another reason why I start my podcast, sharing my knowledge that I have, or finding out more knowledge from other people, and to improve myself, and also to improve whoever listens to this podcast. So I think that's it, right? That's pretty much it. That's one way of doing it. Do you agree with what I've just said, Sharon? I think I went on and on and on. No, I'm trying to catch up to you.
Well, it's kind of we're not taught certain things, right? That should be taught, and loving yourself is one of them. And I have even last couple of days, I when I'm laying in bed, I'm kind of hugging myself and even looking myself in the eye, in the mirror, and saying I love you. I don't do that very often, but I realize that what's inside is priceless. And there's been a story I've seen a couple times on LinkedIn recently, and I've heard this story in ages past, that if
Mm.
you take a little junker car to somebody walking by and you want to sell it, and they say, "Well, what would you give me for this car?" And they'd say, maybe $20, um, and then you take it to a antique, well, a used car lot. Say a used car lot, and they might put a price on it as $200 or $2,000, and you take it to a collector, and that same car is worth millions because they know the uniqueness and value of that particular car. So people, we want our esteem and our acceptance from everybody, but in reality, there's only uh, a small group of people that relate to what our skill and talent is. And therefore, they value us. Value is such an important word to me anymore. I actually wrote a term paper on it. And my professor told me later after he graded it that he'd never in 30 years had somebody write a paper on value. And it was just, I was needing to express myself in an English class or something. So it was nothing consequential. But that's kind of has reminded me how he said of all the years that he'd been teaching, nobody had written about that. But so because when people put you down, they don't understand you. That's all it is. You're not like, well, what the school teaches us, or like a lot of life does, is comparison. Oh, he's not like you, and therefore he's not. I suppose it still happens. You have to wear the right jeans or the right haircut or the right glasses, or else you're not with it,
Mm.
right? And to be strong enough and appreciate your unique value, you've got to get such a tight fist on that and understand you're not like everybody. In fact, when we were camping this weekend, there was three other couples, and I didn't participate in the conversation that much. They were mostly talking about kids and grandkids and great grandkids, and they all knew each other's families a lot. And I started, well, I faced this before, but this time I said, well, Sharon, you don't relate to them because you're still single and you're don't have kids to talk about, but you are unique and valuable in a very different way, and it's good. And my time will come to have the esteem of others, but I have to esteem myself first. Light your fire. What's inside is what I want to, because to me, everybody has a nugget of gold inside. Who tells you that? You need to know that you are so unique and priceless. And thanks for your comments, but no thanks. Push them away and say, I know my real value. Yeah, I have done a lot of self help uh, reading books over the years, and like I think one of the first ones I read was Think and Grow Rich. Well, a lot of people aren't thinking. That makes you different right out the gate. So, you kind of say, "Oh well, I'm sorry you don't understand, but I have a hunch there's some gold inside. I'm digging for my own gold."
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Uh, Sometimes I feel like, actually this happens quite often. We tend to go into groups of certain things, and we want to be in that group, but sometimes when we go into those groups, it feels like we don't belong here sometimes. And like you mentioned that you went camping, and there's a couple of people talking about their kids and stuff, and to join in that conversation, it makes you feel that you don't belong. And it does happen quite often. And usually for me, it's if this does happen, I'm just gonna go tag along, and I'm still gonna listen to their conversation and get information, get insights, because I feel like if I hide myself from this, it's gonna make things worse for me. And that's how I feel personally as well. I feel like if we put ourselves in a social event, or just get with it, just go along with it. I think that's one way of improving ourselves in the sense of understanding that that's how people think, and at the same time, people are the different. I'm going to give an example. I have, well, this is today is Tuesday, right? Tuesday for you. So I will have 3 more days of school days of teaching, and almost every day I have the same grade, right? Same subject, same but different class, and I have to teach them five different classes, 5 different ways of the same topic, because I feel like every class is very different, and the way I have to approach each class, that they are different because the students in there are different. But then on Monday is one of my class that I used to love a lot, but eventually I found out that they start to change more now, in a sense that their teacher or their home classroom teacher asks them to be quiet at all times when teachers are teaching, and that is great. Having a quiet class to teach is great, but it comes to a problem where when I ask the question, "Hey guys, what is this?" and everyone stays quiet.
Mhm.
If someone starts to answer the question, the homeroom monitor will be like, "Hey, be quiet! Don't stop talking." And I was like, "What?" This kinds of like feels like what's going on. And so what I'm trying to say is the kids in that class are being pressured into saying, I can't do anything, even though I want to talk, even though I want to raise my hands. And so if we look at this scenario, do you think it's amazing? Most people think it's not, it's oppressive. I feel like it is the same way. I feel like kids need to have a chance to raise their hands and say things, even though it's maybe it's inappropriate to the class, but it brings a certain kind of um, feeling to the class, and it makes teaching, or it makes learning much more fun, and feel like you are involved instead of just going to a certain spot and just being told what not to do, what to do, and just let it go. And this is the thing. I feel like we need to change this. Obviously, we need to change the idea that if we go certain ways, we need, like you said, be yourself, but at the same time be yourself in the society. Now, who cares what people say, right? If we don't have kids, if you go to a group of people who are talking about kids, I don't really care so much. Just go there, share what you had. It's like, oh, is that how you deal with kids? I mean, that's one way of saying it. And at the same time, you learn experiences from other people, and then you can share the same experiences that other people had. And I think that is the point, or that is the key, that we need to make ourselves feel worth worthwhile. And I like your analogy of the car sales thing. It's true. It's true. It's very true. Uh, some people will like Pokemon cards, and there's, oh, look at these Pokemon cards, and like this is worth thousands and thousands of dollars, and some people are like, that's just a piece of paper. It doesn't worth anything. And so I'm like, well, speaking about this recently, there are some people who value certain things, and some people who value certain things less. I have to say this out. I have a class, and some kid. I have a kid in my class that loves technology stuff. So obviously, technology stuff, things are expensive, right? They're small and tiny, but they're expensive. They cost a lot of money. And the girls in the class would be like, "But it's just like a toy. It's just, why you spend so much money on that?" And I have to say, well, for the girls here, how do you spend money on? Clothes, maybe, or shoes, whatever. Handbags, I don't know, what do you guys spend money on? And one of the girls said, "Oh, I spend money on this doll." And how much is that doll? A few $1,000s. Exactly. For us, the doll would be like, why? It's just a doll. But it's just different ways of feeling. But in that day, I told everyone, it doesn't matter what we buy. It's more like how you fulfill yourself. If you're happy about it, then there you go, right? That's it. It's all about yourself. It's not about what people think about you. It's about how you feel about yourself. And I think that's what you're trying to say.
Well, I really relate to your story of having to be quiet because I went through a season of that probably 25, 30 years ago. I was living near here, but my job then transferred me down to Tampa, Florida, way across the country.
Mm.
But I had already been sensing in the church I was going to, I was getting tired of being talked to.
Oh.
I wanted to participate. I didn't put the title of interactive teaching on my feeling at that time, but I was sitting there listening, and how come you're the only one that gets to talk? It was kind of that feeling that was
Mm.
bubbling up. And now there's a new process that is being taught that just jazzes me because he says instead of being the sage on the stage, you're the guide on the side.
Mm.
You're allowing for people to share their expertise or their wisdom or their talent.
This is at
Um,
the church, you say?
well, no, it's actually a business program coming out of
Okay.
Ohio. And this guy is going into big companies, Microsoft and Google and all kinds of places. And he only takes about 10 minutes to teach. And then he puts people in groups of three and gives them a very pointed question to answer in only a short time to collaborate. So they have to jump to what's really important here and uh, get to the nugget
Mm.
uh, quickly, and then come back and share in the big group what was their answer to the question. So it's strategically guiding the people both to participate, to be heard, to contribute. And I took his initial course on, he called it conscious facilitation. But this whole thing of being instead of being the sage on the stage, one person doing all the talking, how come you get to do all the talking? And there's 100 people there that could be adding to your content, bringing it alive, giving you more perspective on what you're talking about, and sharing a bigger
Point of
value.
view. Yeah. Broaden your
Yeah.
horizons. Yeah.
And because there's change that's happening at such a fast pace, we can't afford to be the sage on the stage anymore.
Mm.
We have to bring in the nuggets that is in each person in the room. And I did see this happen. It was an innovative deal back then, but it was. See, I was still at the phone company, so that's got to be 40, 50 years ago now. But we were able to sit. It was the beginning of collaboration of as the sage on the stage was talking, we could put comments in to our own document, and then we later, I guess, shared it with the
Mm.
speaker. But um, I was so impressed that I could be making comments quietly, like on email, while they're talking, and it was the baby steps of getting before email had even existed yet. But for the sage to open up and hear from everyone was what was novel that I was amazed at.
Like that. That's kind of like a subject that we have been teaching in most schools nowadays. It's a new subject. It's called GPR, which is globalization, global research, global perspective and research, which is globalization stuff. We take world problems and bring it down into a certain perspective and understand it, and of course, research about it and get opinions from young people, students as well. And most of my kids are like, "Yeah, this has been done. Why are we still talking about it?" And I mentioned it's not because why we're still talking about it, it's about you thinking about for yourself. What is your opinion on this? We need to find out your opinion because every generation is different. The way I think it will be different than the way the students think. And so we want the students' idea and the opinion. And of course, kids will come out like, but we're young. We don't need opinions. You just teach us, just talk. I'm like, that's not how it works nowadays. If I just teach and teach and teach, and what you learn is only from me, and in that case, then you don't really learn a lot. If I'm inexperienced, if I don't have a lot of wisdom, if I don't read a lot of books, then there's not much knowledge I can impart on. But at the same time, if you give your opinions and I guide you through your opinions, and that's one way of them learning and improving and be more courageable in some way. And I feel like this is great for this topic as well, because most people feel like I don't want to be involved. Like you mentioned, like you want to be involved and people are talking all the time, but there are kids out there who feel like I don't want to be involved. But if there's a way for them to share the message out, maybe some part of them they want to say something but they are not able to, I think we should figure out a way for them to express themselves. And it's just difficult. I don't think there's many places where people can express themselves without being judged for it. Even in families at home, like if you share your thoughts to your parents, I'm pretty sure your parents gonna be like immediately, yeah, that's not how you do it. Oh no, no, you should do it this way, right? How was it with your parents before? Were they
Well,
judgmental towards?
it reminds me. Recently, my nephew asked me, what's help me understand cognitive distortion."
No.
I didn't know he sent me a LinkedIn article, and I didn't read the whole thing because it was a little bit long, but I did, Google search, and it sounded like cognitive uh,
Distortion.
distortion reminded me of my dad, in fact, because it seemed like, everything was yes or no, black or
Mhm.
white. What was another one? But um, so I picture me like, I do a loneliness group weekly as a result of reading Vivek Murthy's book Together, and realizing that people needed help getting out of loneliness. And so as you grow, say I decide, like an addict, maybe you go to AA meetings, I know I need help, so I'm starting here. And as you grow in your strength of character and choices and so forth, you're making progress. But I like taking a little red wagon in my mind with how far I've come.
Mm.
Oh, my wagon's here. Look, turn around and see how far I've come from my transformation. I'm growing and changing, but often we don't see it because it's daily. It's just small steps. But oh, look, I'm transforming, and I started back there. I am making progress in my transformation. So, but at home, it was black or white. There wasn't any in between. And I related to my nephew then that you're not giving it. It wasn't until I went to college that I realized there is gray area, because you're moving from where you were to where you
Mm.
want to be, making new choices that feel right and good for you. But self judging is another critical area. I mean, I because I put on lots of weight, and that was one way to be safe. Um, let's see, I lost my train of thought though. That okay. So for my 70th birthday, I went back and dug out a bunch of pictures, and was reflecting on how I had felt so fat and so not like everybody else, and so not beautiful. My self judgment was as much or more critical to keeping me stuck than you judging me.
Mm.
Amazing, you know. So I have really put a lot of work into loving myself the last couple years, and what a milestone in loving. Well, in life goes better when I'm loving myself. Um, I'm and here's a little tidbit that I since I'm not judging myself, I'm not judging others as much either. And the grace that I give them, they're doing the best they know how. For today, that's the best they can do. And they're also moving along that transformation, and give them grace.
Mm.
They'll eventually get there. And maybe you're a couple steps ahead of them. So
I like that. I agree with you with that. There are certain gray areas. I'm gonna say this in my family as well. I tend to do things like yes or no. Either we go or don't go. Don't tell me maybe. I don't know. Because I for me, I feel like that's a lazy way of saying for kids. I'm just saying for kids. I'm not saying for older. For kids, because if I ask my kids, "What do you want to eat?" They're like, "I don't know." I'm like, "You gotta tell me so I can decide." I was like, "Oh, I don't know," and then I keep hearing, I don't know, I don't know. Oh, I feel like I don't know what to eat. Oh, maybe, maybe. And I'm like, no, yes or no. I'm gonna give you a question. You're gonna tell me. You're gonna eat noodles. You want to eat noodles? If you say yes, then we go eat noodles. No, then we don't eat noodles. Yes or no. If they say maybe, maybe it's a yes. So we're going. So I'm taking a yes and a no. But this is the way I'm teaching my kids. That I want them to be proactive in saying they want to do something instead of not saying they don't want to do anything. If they don't want to do anything, fine, then let's go to a different route. But if they keep posing and thinking about it during their younger years like this, um, I feel like it's not very helpful. But as of course, when you get older, then it's different because you have to think about things that are going to happen, the consequence of picking certain things. And but as younger kids, there's not much so much consequences. It's more like the parents will take care of the rest, right? So it's yeah, just do it. If you want to do something, just do it. I told my kids that. So when they were young, they some of my kids, my daughter says she wants to dance. Fine, let's get you a dancing school. Take you go dancing. You want to learn how to dance. My kid says he wants to learn how to play drum. Fine, then drum class. Buy some drums. Things like that makes it feel like they are doing something. Of course, now maybe like I don't like drums anymore. It's fine. I paid a lot of money for it. Put a little guilt there. I'm just kidding. But and then they will want to do it. And so at the same time, I feel like when we do certain things as parents, we feel like parents definitely have to judge their kids, but we definitely should not judge other older people. But it does happen. Um, and you
I re-
mentioned yeah, sorry.
well, I remember somebody. I was kind of dating this guy, and one way that helped him to know what I wanted or was feeling or whatever, he started to do, is it this or this or this or this? The choices. And it really helped because, I either thought I didn't have an opinion, or it was thousands of opinions, and what would it matter anyway? But it helped me articulate and get specific. And well, it's kind of like this, because sometimes it's like that in between these two.
Of
But
course, sure, yeah, yeah.
expressing myself, it really helped. And I've often remembered how he did that with me. Yeah.
I talk to my students as well. Some of my students sometimes they said they don't like this today, they don't like this, and the next day they say, "Oh, I want this today." I'm like, make up your mind, stop changing. You want this today, and you don't want this today, and what do you want? And sometimes they, oh, teacher, can you help me get this from me? I was like, sure, what do you want? And then they'll tell me what they want, and then I went there and get what they want, and they feel like this is not really what I want. I was like, what do you want? Tell me. If you want me to do something, give me specific. And I tend to use this reason by saying, I'm a guy. You tell me something, I may get exactly what you said, but it may be not what you want. And so, but well, yeah, people are like that sometimes, and it just what I guess that's just life. Well, Sharon, I want to thank you for your time for coming, taking part in our chat today. And I thank you for all the insights that you have given for us. And I'm sure my listeners out there, they have learned a lot. But let's end with something more. Could you give us a short, let's say, a tip or anything that you can share with the young listeners out there in how they can deal with their self worthless, or they're feeling unseen in their life?
Well, I'm actually since I'm doing this loneliness group, I'm having to get boned up on the top some of the topics because I bring in guests and they're there for 2 weeks, and then the other 2 weeks I fill in. And this week I'm working on the feeling of belonging.
Mm,
So my thought with my loneliness group is to go from lonely, maybe sitting in a corner and feeling like you're the only one that feels this way, to moving out and making the progress moving towards resilience. I'll never forget when I left Seattle here and moved to Tampa. My girlfriend, we were having dinner together, and she said I was the most resilient person she knew, and I really, and I've chewed on that for a while. So, but resilience is getting out of yourself and into more of welcoming some of the world that will feel safe to you. So this last month we had a gal that actually talked about self-kindness and how she had us listening to ourselves by putting our ears hands over our ears. And see, what was another one? Uh, anyway, it was a way of expressing kindness to ourselves that we might also have done for your friends, but do you do it for yourself? So self-kindness was one of her tips for not being lonely. So, but even as I've been doing this group, I realize that resilience isn't the end goal. Resilience is on the way to feeling belonging,
mm,
that sense of family, a tribe that understands you. So, my guest next month is going to do a couple sessions on belonging in the workplace. There's more innovation and creativity when we're working as a team and we've got each other's back and we believe in each other and we understand each other. And so I've been boning up on belonging. And the first research I did sounded like, yes, it's having accepting yourself and a small group of people. You've moved through some resilience, but the belonging includes the messiness of life that you've gone through together. It might be crying your eyes out because you lost a game, or your friend is moving out of town and how terrible it feels. Or it could be the opposite of being so excited about life that you're on the moon and your friends are going through that with you. That doesn't happen online.
mm,
It happens in the messy rooms of life, and going through it together. You create history that wasn't that marvelous. The camping trip we went on, kind of thing. So I'm still learning about belonging because my only perspective of belonging was in fact living on a farm. We stacked hay and milk cows and all this stuff. There's lots of work fixing ditch breaks and all that. We went through that together.
mm,
But in the social aspect of living, I probably still using some need some groundwork there. Do some more work in as far as belonging. But I I I've been hungry for new relationships, and like this camping and not being able to share with these three couples. Then I need to find my own tribe that I want to go
mm.
camping with, for example. But doing life together is so meaningful, and um, there's a somebody knows me because they walked through that valley with me. So, but
Thank you, Sharon.
here's okay. So here's I just made this course. We're in the process of launching this. Make a marvelous transition into volunteering,
Uh-huh.
and I have been so impressed. I volunteer at the food bank down here. It's just around the corner. And for 2 years, I've been delivering groceries to people who are either can't drive anymore, they're a caregiver, or they're like one lady I think had a deaf son or grandson, probably. I didn't know for sure, but reasons that they couldn't get out to get their own groceries or didn't have the funds. And as I'm writing this course on volunteering, I I started seeing how much. Um, I used one of my podcast guests. He was a AARP president of Washington State for 6 years, and he had a nice. Here's the 9 tips for being successful in volunteering, and there was taking a risk and learning from your new setting. You're being social. You start somewhere, So and for young people, it's amazing how much personal growth happens when you're in these new situations um, and helping others. Well, the principle is what I start out, I say my story from my mom. Sharon, when you help somebody else and helping them on their journey, then it feels good, and now you feel good too. They're blessed because you helped them in their need, and it and the good feeling comes back to me. Yeah. And so I'm just so impressed at how much good, because volunteering jobs can turn into a job. They say, well, he's responsible, he showed up, he's truthful, he's reliable. Oh, we want that kind of person to work for us. Here, we'll give you a job for while you're going to college or something, kind of thing.
Yeah, I love volunteering when I was younger. Well, thank you, Sharon, for all your insights. I really liked it. I think one of the point that your friend made, I want to pick it out there and share it out. Start somewhere. I teach art to my kids as well, to my students, and sometimes they think too much on what to draw or what to paint. And you gotta start. You just gotta start. Start it. Draw a shape, draw a circle, do something. I think this applies to everything we want to do. If you want to do it, start it. If we keep thinking about whether to do it or not to do it, it's gonna stall you. It's just like how I first started my podcast. I feel like, should I start streaming? Should I not start streaming? What should I do? What should I do? And I feel like if I keep thinking about it, it's not gonna happen. I just need to start it. I just need to do it. And I want to end it for everyone out there. And just to end it, we often are kind to people, but like Sharon mentioned, we need to be kind to ourselves as well, right? Stop feeling worthless. Stop feeling that we're not there, we're not seen. Be kind to yourself. Make yourself say that you are worth something. There is a reason why we are here. There are reason why we are doing something. Let's just do it. Just start it. All right. Well, thank you everyone again. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for everyone coming to the show and watch the show. Please, if you liked our show, please like and share and subscribe, and hopefully we can bring more to you and more different episodes. Again, thank you everyone, and goodbye. Have a good night.